Hello, my name is Lisa Ernst, and I'm the Executive Director of Savvy Ladies. Welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. Before we get started, a reminder that we'll leave a few minutes at the end of the presentation for your questions. Feel free to type your questions into the chat window. If you're listening to the presentation and have a question, you can send your question to info@savvyladies.org. We are so fortunate to have Ebong Eka with us today. Ebong is a CPA and best-selling author. His career experience includes some of the largest consulting firms, including PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte& and Touche. What we love about Ebong and why we invited him to lead a webinar for Savvy Ladies is real-life practical money solutions tailored to the everyday person, aspiring entrepreneurs, and the small business owners. We are excited to learn the strategies and tips he has for us to grow a business. Welcome and thank you again, Ebong.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm always humbled by those intros. I when I'm ever in a bad mood, I'm going to give you a call and ask you to read that for me.
Okay, great.
Um, that's awesome. Well, welcome everybody. I think we had about 30 minutes or so I'm gonna try and go through this complete presentation and under that, so we have time for questions. But the whole point of this webinar is to talk about just the strategies to turn your ideas into income. And as you already know, as Lisa already mentioned, my background is a CPA, author, entrepreneur, speaker, and all the other stuff. And these are some of the other places that I've appeared on to share my knowledge. And part of the time, I end up going on TV and arguing with people because there's a lot of things in terms of social conditioning where you're told certain things, and so they become limiting beliefs for you. And I also want to make sure that we all realize that you have everything you need. So starting off, we'll start with the state of the economy. The economy has been crappy recently since 2008. We had job loss, we had stock market losses. Every day, if you go on TV or listen to CNBC, they're always talking about how stocks are down and how they're up. And then you hear that enough, it becomes part of your everyday life narrative. And people are making less money. People aren't being paid as much. People are being laid off regardless of the jobs. There's no seniority in things. And so there's no time like the present to think of new ideas as to how you can be in control of your own economy and your own financial environment. And I'm not talking about putting money in the stock market or all that stuff, and that's great. I think those are also great vehicles for long-term wealth and securing your financial nest egg and so forth. This is more along the lines of playing more of an active role in making more money and earning more money, whether it's from an idea that you want to use to start a business, or if it's something, or if it's currently in your own job and you want to be an entrepreneur. Those are people who are sort of very entrepreneurial, but they work within the confines of a corporate setting. So when you have an idea for a business, what do people normally go through, if you ask yourself? And a lot of people tend not to start anything because of the fears and doubts. Fears and doubts are extremely crippling. The reason why I attack this, and I'm not going right into the ideas or into how to turn your idea into income, is because information is plentiful, as most of you would agree. You can go on Google. We have an amazing thing called a smartphone, an iPhone, iPad, and everything with an I in front of it. You can go there and find information about almost anything you want in life. That's not the issue. Information is never really the issue, I believe. I believe it's the execution. It's the action or lack of action thereof that actually prohibit people from doing things. Whether it's, if you want to lose weight or become healthy, if you want to stop smoking, you know what to do. The question is, are there circumstances as well as a roadmap to getting started so that I can actually keep the momentum going? Now, I'm going a little bit off script here, but the impetus for me writing my book, Start Me Up, the No Business Plan, was because I had a friend who had an idea for a business and she wanted to reach out to me to review her business plan. I said, get back to me when you have a chance. When you're done with your business plan, I'll give you my points. She said, fine. After which, she got back to me 9 months later. Literally took her 9 months to go through the plan, and she wasn't even complete. It wasn't even complete, or she wasn't finished. And I told her that you literally could have had a baby in those 9 months. And you literally wasted 9 months of your life laboring over a document that nobody reads in order to start something that you easily could have started with just very little, with little startup money, with little problems. And so that's kind of why I'm on this path, and the whole impetus between economics and also Start Me Up, the No Business Plan. Now, with fears and doubts, the first thing you run into is your friends and family. They're going to tell you things like, it's a bad idea. You'll First of all, you tell somebody your idea, you're excited, and the first thing they'll tell you is there anything else out there like that? It's a bad idea. You hear all these different things. Um, the question is, how do you deal with those things? And so I always tell people one of the best ways to combat that is to find people who are in that same space. I don't mean particularly in what you're doing and what you want to do, but other entrepreneurs. You want to be around people who are doing. It's very similar to people who go through AA. They tell you not to hang out with other people who drink regularly. So the converse also happens. You hang out with people who don't drink, but also who are on a positive path or who are thinking this along the same lines as you are, so that you can get the mindset right to the place where you need to be in order to move forward when you're fearful, when you go to sleep and you can't pay your bills and you're worried. Um, the other thing I hear about doubt wise and fear is there's little to no startup money. I did a survey. I released a survey on Facebook and also advertised for people to answer my survey. And one of the most one of the most feared questions or pain points that people had when starting a business or currently running their business is they thought they needed a lot of money to start. And I was talking to somebody about that recently at a cocktail party. Her name is Christy, and I said, "Hey," she said, "Well, why do I need a business plan? Or I also need to raise a lot of money to start my business?" And I asked her why. Like, what are you going to spend the money on? And she couldn't tell me. Nobody really can. And the reality is, you really don't need as much money to get started. The next is social conditioning. And I mentioned that, I alluded to that earlier with the media and how the economy is bad, how life is bad. Starting a business is hard. Half of businesses fail. You hear all these things. And so you start doubting yourself and your abilities. Now, the last one is your lack of experience. So you say, I don't have a business experience, and I don't have an MBA. And there are a lot of people who start businesses who don't have MBAs. There are a lot of people I know who are multimillionaires who never even finished high school. Like, I'm not saying that's going to be you, and I'm not saying education is bad. What I am saying is it's not a cause and effect relationship. Your lack of knowledge and experience is not an indication of your future success, because you can actually change and work on those things. Now, I always say the complexity is the enemy of execution. And Tony Robbins is amazing. He's an amazing person I always read and listen to from a mindset perspective. And that's part of the problem. We believe that starting a business has to be this huge, complex experience, and it really doesn't. So let's crack into it relatively quickly, and we go through this so that I can answer a lot of your questions. The first is your idea, and your idea comes from basically from your experiences, right? And that's one of the easier ways. Like, I'm not saying if you have a product idea, this basically is for people who have experiences, they're already professionals, and they maybe want to go out on their own, or maybe they want to take some experience they have professionally and turn it into a business on the side for themselves and to make extra money until eventually they can transfer over into a full-time employment, a full-time self-employment, right? And so the first thing with your experiences, you have to take a look. Say, for example, I'm gonna go into some examples of certain type of professions, but say you are someone who's in public relations. That's a that's a great opportunity for you to take your existing skills and experiences and turn that into a side job or a side gig, and then eventually turn it into a full-time gig, by using what you already know. Now, I always talk about the reasons, and part of this idea, I always talk about the reasons why people spend money. And they spend money for two reasons, and two reasons only. People spend money to get a desired result or to solve a problem. Those are the only two reasons. I've had people challenge me on this before, and I just say, ask yourself, why do you spend money? When you buy food, the problem you have is you want to eat. When you buy a home or rent, the problem is you need a place to stay. A car is so that you don't have to walk. Buying an expensive person, as an example, there's an underlying interest in value. You want that $15,000 Birkin bag because you know there's value associated with the Birkin bag. Otherwise, you'd go get a free purse from Goodwill, or pay $1 for a free purse. Correct? So 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 those are the reasons why people spend money. So if you understand the reason why someone will spend money, you can tailor what you know into an offering that solves a problem that they have. And that goes to number three: solve people's problems. People who solve problems are the ones who make the most money. And another saying I always like to hear is, when a person with money meets a person with experience, the person with experience ends up with that person's money. That's always happens. That's just the way commerce works. That's the reason why businesses exist. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, that's a great idea. I understand all that. I should use my experiences, but there's, say I'm in public relations. That's huge. There's so many things I can do. What I always tell people is when you start and you have an idea and you have experiences you want to turn into your own business. After you start with your idea and you formulate what problem you want to solve, the second thing you want to focus on is creating a niche. Okay. And the reason why it's important, obviously, number one is that's what a niche is, narrowing your focus. It's important to narrow your focus because you can't serve all things to all people. And I also believe if you don't create and your niche can be your your market, the group you focus on. It could be it could be age, it could be gender, it could be geographic location, it could be specific industries, and even niche down further within that industry. Um, there's always a smaller market that wants your services. And the reason I say it's important is because when you niche or create a niche, or as Canadians say, a niche, there's an easier way for you to find customers because you know specifically what they want and you become an expert in that space. So the example I gave somebody once was, let's say PR again. You can say in PR, you could be PR for everybody, but say you became a public relations representative or expert in the restaurant space, not only the restaurant space, in Japanese cuisine. Now, every time a Japanese restaurant comes around or wants to move into an area wherever you live, your name comes up. You're the person who becomes the expert. Anytime there's an issue with Japanese cuisine, say there's for lack of I hope this doesn't happen, but some tsunami or some problem in Japan that destroys, the fishing, and how that trickles down to affect restaurants, your name comes up. When there's a shortage of fish, your name comes up, because everything that's ancillary to Japanese cuisine and your being an expert in the PR space makes you the expert. You're the person who ends up on Good Morning America. You're the person who ends up on the Today Show. You're the person that ends up on a lot of CNN or a lot of the nightly news talking about those issues because you focus on that in those areas. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do PR in other areas. It just means that you're differentiating yourself. And so now when another restaurant shows up and or Nobu says we're opening another location somewhere, you're the expert in Japanese cuisine from a public relations standpoint, and you're the first person they will call. And I've seen that happen time and time again. Now, I talked about examples earlier. Well, some of the other examples I already alluded to public relations in the media space. Chiropractor is an example. I found a chiropractor locally here in the Washington, D.C. area because he was known to be the number one chiropractor for the Washington Redskins. So he serviced a lot of the players and former players and people who worked for the organization. I don't even know if they even paid him for this, but it didn't matter. There were like hundreds of, if not thousands of chiropractors in the DC area, but automatically there was some social proof that came from being associated with the Washington Redskins. You can be a PR person, public relations person for just lawyers and attorneys. Every time there's an issue with the law or some legal matter or someone's in trouble with the law, you're the person that they call because you became that expert in that space. Then from after that, you can grow because you're the person who's known as the PR person for lawyers. Then you can eventually be the PR person for accountants, the PR chiropractors, the PR person for whatever. Same thing with creative writers. Creative writers say, I know a lot of creative writers, especially New York as well as here in the DC area. You can focus on writing copy. You can do content. You can do online copy as well as marketing copy for businesses locally, small businesses. You can even tailor that even further to entrepreneurs. You can even tailor that even further down to IT. You can be the IT copywriter for anybody who's running a website or has marketing material. You're the person, you're the go-to person. Do you see? I hope you guys see the example of niches there and niches there, and why it's imperative that you kind of narrowly focus, because then you can charge higher prices and you can eventually segment yourself as an expert in one space. Now, going into how much I charge, and that's another huge question I get from people every time I give speeches or I get questions via email or on Facebook is, what do I charge people? I have no idea. So this is like these are 4 simple steps to be able to charge what you can't find. Now, before I tell you, before we go into it, you can obviously see them here on the screen. I was on Fox News several months ago, right after my book came out, and I went on and I said, uh, my stance was in bad times, small businesses should raise their prices. And I went on. I remember like vivid. I mean, completely vividly. I went on, and they argued with me. The host was like, "That's crazy. That's ridiculous. What are you talking about? When the economy is bad, that's the time you lower prices." But I kind of mentioned to you guys earlier, if you create a niche and you focus on what your niche is, the economy has nothing to do with you. When somebody, say you're the Japanese PR, the person for Japanese cuisine, and you're the PR person for that space, whatever they're going to do their restaurant, they don't care about the economy. They've already done the research to figure out that they have a need. You provide so much value that the economy and the external factors and every regular person, the commodity companies and firms, they have nothing to do with you. So somebody once asked me on Fox, they asked me that same question. Me some quick steps. These are the steps I came up with. I said you got to research your competition, find out what your competition is charging for comparable services, of course, and then charge exactly what they charge. And then right after you charge exactly what they charge, provide more value, over deliver. That can be providing the whatever the services or the project is, provide it quicker than your competition normally would provide it. Maybe they say, okay, we'll touch base in a month, touch base with them once a week. Maybe you meet with them. It's not about money. It's not about giving them more things. It's about, I mean, in terms of taking them out to dinner, it's more along the lines of making sure you're following what they expect, uh, addressing their expectations, and then providing them with exponentially more value. But one of the best ways to do that is to make sure you solve that problem that they have. So whatever it is, you need to solve that problem to the point where they're so happy. And you let them know this is our first time working together, but next time I have to raise my prices because I about 2 weeks ago here in the DC area, and I saw one of the people who was in the audience gave an example of this. He said, "I'm moving. I've moved a few times in this area, and I only use one moving company." And I said, "Well, why is that?" He said, "Well, I know what I'm going to get." Uh, and for some reason, when I'm about to move, or maybe when I put in when I'm about to close on my house, all the other moving companies find out from some service somehow, but they find out that I'm going to move soon. And I get all these bids from other moving companies that are 10, 20, sometimes even 50% cheaper than what I'm going to be paying to my current moving company. I said, "Well, what's keeping you with your current moving company?" He's like, "I know what I'm going to get. The service is impeccable. All I have to do is point and they pack and then they unpack. That's it. I don't have to do anything else. Money is not as important to me because what's more important to me is my wife being happy, my children being happy because we know that all our stuff's going to get there in the room it's supposed to be in, and in most cases unpacked. I can't put a price on that peace of mind. That's why I pay almost double than some of the competitors. And that's exactly where you need to be because you can be there. It's not that difficult. I trust me. Okay, now websites and resources. Now, when you're starting out, again, just to recap real quickly, the idea, focus on what your problem you're going to solve in your space, narrow it down as a niche, research your competition, find out what they charge exactly what they charge, provide excess value, and then raise your prices the next time around. Now, you want to set up your website. Relatively simple. You can go to Wix, Weebly, WordPress. You can go to websites like freelancer.com and find somebody to do a WordPress website for you. Relatively easy to put all your products and services. One thing I'm going to mention about websites is you want to put a lot of information on there. Not a lot, but you want to put information on there. Maybe you can put a range of your prices because that's basically what people are looking for. You want to your keywords. I mean, SEO is not as much of as an interest as much, I believe. It's more along the lines of content. Google gotten a lot smarter. It's not just putting keywords on a page and hoping you rank. You want to put resources in there, like create a resource page for you. Like, say you're in the PR space, you know what to look for, how to hire a PR person. You can do a resource page like what elements should be in a press release right? There's so many things you can do, but you want people to come to you as a resource for information. Now, the other part of the resource example I want to add to you is, if you're starting out, you're a solopreneur, you don't have time on your own. You don't have time to do everything. Maybe you have a full-time job and you're doing this at night. I get it. What I do is I do two things. I go to my local college and I ask them about their internship program. And a lot of times in the business school, a lot of people they have interns that will come and work either for free. You can pay them a couple dollars an hour. They're getting experience, and you get much needed work. Another thing you can do is you can find virtual assistants. You can go domestically here in the U.S. A place called Zirtual, Zirtual.com. It's a little bit more pricey. Say freelancer.com and found a virtual assistant, somebody there to help you with daily things or whatever problems that you may have in your business. It be something as simple as taking all these business cards that I got, put them in a spreadsheet, and so you can upload it into your email marketing software or your customer relations management software like Sugar or Salesforce, or even just keep it, or even upload it to LinkedIn. So those are things you can do that are relatively cheap, economical, and can get you focused on getting your first customer. So now is the key. That's the biggest thing. So okay, that's great, Abong. You told me all these wonderful things. Now, how do I get my first customer? People go crazy for this because it's important. If you don't make money for your business, you're not in business. You are a charity. So the first thing I always say is your network. It's the first thing you want to do. You want to email your network. And now I'll give you some quick hints about emailing your network. You don't want to email them and say, if you have any business, please refer my way. That's one way of doing it, depending on how well you know this person. What I usually like to do in emails I send to people to like try and get businesses, you can approach it one of two ways. The first way I would say is, this is what I'm doing now. As many of you know, I do this X, but now I'm taking the entrepreneurial leap or the plunge, and now I'm doing Y. And I would love your suggestions on acquiring my first client, or maybe you know somebody you wanna that would love to talk about what services I have to offer. I really appreciate referrals. Thanks. Something really, and then going to number two. Actually, just the second one I'll tell you is either the first way I just told you, or the second way is, this is what I used to do. This is what I'm doing now, and this is why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I noticed a problem in this particular industry, like blank, and this is how I'm going to solve it by doing Y. And I would love your suggestions to see if see your thoughts on this. A lot of times people say, I want to help you. Yeah, I get this is a problem. I don't need your help right now, but I know somebody who does. And for come from that. Bleeds into this thing. I always from a lot of people. I met Peter Shankman. Many of you know Peter Shankman from Help a Reporter Out. He also had a bunch of other companies in the past. Serial entrepreneur. I met him last week at a conference, and I'm actually going to meet him. I'm going to see him again next week at one of his masterminds called Shank Minds here in the Washington D.C. area. I'm really excited about that. But one thing, when he spoke at the conference last week, one of the things that he told me that to this day resonated with me and all the few hundred people who were there at the AWeber conference is top of mind. Now you're probably thinking, what does that mean? I didn't know what the heck that meant, what that meant either. But he explained it like this. He said, Barry Diller, who's chairman of AIC, who owns companies like OpenTable and Expedia, the online Match.com. What he used to do was his first job was working at Paramount. That's what he used to do when he was at Paramount Studios. He used to make movies. And what he did was he came in an hour early before everybody else. But this is what he did that was top of mind. Every day he would email or call, actually not email back then, he'd call 10 people in his Rolodex and ask them, how are you doing? What's going on with you? How can I help you? He did that 10 people every single day. And that in and of itself is the one thing, if you were listening to this, that will exponentially grow your business. The minute I heard that, my brain melted. And I've now started doing that. Reaching out to people. I have a list of people every day. I take 10 people, send them a quick email. If I know them close enough, I'll call them. Hey, how you doing? I was just thinking about you. What's going on with you? How can I help you? That's that in of itself. If you take nothing else from what I said, that little top of mind hint literally can make anybody a millionaire. I guarantee. I guarantee it. Okay, now going to number three, LinkedIn forums. Go to LinkedIn forums. LinkedIn is great. Go to a LinkedIn forum that's in your space and start answering questions. Start participating in the forums, and then people start figuring out what you want to know what you do, and from there you can actually drum up some business. The next is freelancer.com. Create an account at freelancer.com. You literally, that's what it is. You become a freelancer. Look at some of the accounts or profiles of people who are doing really well, who've gotten a lot of business. Them. I'm not saying copy, but mirror, which I think is different. The fifth is Craigslist. Very simple. Go to Craigslist, do a quick search, see if you can maybe some businesses out there who are looking for what you provide. It doesn't hurt, and I'm not saying for me. I found a few clients on Craigslist, and I'm not afraid to admit it. And it does work. So those are the things that you can do in order to get clients or your first customer, and they actually work. It's not going to be easy. All you need to do is put in a little bit of the work. I understand you come home, you have family, people, kids to eat, but this is worth it to you, because the minute you get your first or second customer, that's when you have extra money coming in. 200, $300,000 a month. It's worth the effort. Now, if you want to email me, of course, my email address is there. It's info@ebongeka.com. My Twitter handle. I ask that you tweet this, and just I would love to for you to tweet anything that you took from this webinar, as well as add savvy ladies, of course, and just tweet it and just share with your Twitter family what you learned, what you saw, what you liked, all those things. My website, economics, and I didn't talk about economics earlier. Economics, basically, we focus on your mission, your mindset, and your money, and the importance of all those things being congruent in order to live a healthy, fruitful, and enjoyable life. That's a picture of my book. It's been a bestseller on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. Obviously, pick up a copy. I would love that. And if you have any questions about the book as you read it, please, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I think this is it. And I'm ready for any questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Ebong. And I read your book and it's great. So
Thank you, Lisa.
yeah, I have an autographed copy, so I'm very it was special.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
we have time for a couple questions, and we did get a few. There was a lot of questions about pricing and the niche part that you talked about, but let
Mhm.
me just grab up a couple.
Okay.
Um, have you ever encountered the problem that a niche business is really too specific and does not cater to enough people to make money?
Yes, but you have to think of it this way. Can you service more? Do you have the resources to service more? And so I think there's two ways to look at it. One is, am I charging enough money? So, or is a problem that painful enough that the person is going to spend enough money in order to make it worth my while? So that's kind of the key. So if you're looking in a situation, especially if it's a service base, you're looking at a situation, the whole situation where you're not making enough money from a particular client, they may not value the services you're providing. And if that's the case, you have to find somebody who's willing to pay you enough. So here's an example I have. I had a client who's in PR, and she does entertainment, only like clubs and bars and stuff like that. He charges a retainer, and she's like, "Look, when you have an event, I get people there. I get you in the media. This is what I provide. You can go elsewhere. I'm charging you 3,000 a month as a retainer, and that's it." She has 3 or 4 or 5 clients like that. She pulls $1,000 a year. Those customers and clients that she pulls in, they realize the value that she's bringing to them. So they're not going to try and go anywhere else. They can do their own PR. They can do PR web or PR wire or whatever, and we write their own press releases. But they understand that she brings people to their bar, to their restaurant, and she brings the news coverage based on the current, the way the whatever's going on currently in the current news. And so that has to be the way you approach it. How bad do you want your problem solved?
Okay. Great, great. We have one that came in over chat, and it says, "I'm an interior designer and artist. How to create a niche out of this?"
That's a very good question. I met somebody once several years ago who does a lot of interior designing, who does interior design work for athletes, and out in Oklahoma. And the reason why she was able to do that is she met somebody who played for one of the teams. I don't know, Oklahoma City or something like that. From there, she realized that a lot of people, everyone's so transient, right? And so a lot of the people who are athletes are transient. So they were coming and going. They didn't really, at some point in time, you're tired of looking at a wall, or your home with just, crappy cord furniture and bare walls. So she created packages to say, wait, and eventually started working with the teams to say, if you, whenever new players come in, she's our resident interior designer. And so you can come from that perspective. So many ways you can come from any perspective you can come from. You can come from a perspective of someone who doesn't have enough time, who also understands, maybe who understands, some semblance of beauty and art and what you do as an interior designer. But you can pick an industry and think about the problem that person particularly has. Usually, sometimes it could be someone who's not married, they're single, maybe someone who just came out of school, and they're going to be an attorney, and they have enough money to pay for that, but they don't want to worry. They want somebody to pick, point and pick, and you can do all the rest. Like, a lot of ways you can look to narrow it down.
Great. Thanks so much. I'm going to try to take this next question and sort of consolidate into one because there seems to be a general theme here.
Sure.
And that has to do with people who have a full-time job, who are trying to start a business and trying to figure out a way that they can sort of keep honest to that process. And if you have any suggestions, is it practical when you're working full-time, and how do you sort of keep yourself on course?
That's another one of the most frequently asked questions I receive. I look at it this: there's a few ways. First thing is, and not to get macabre, but we're all gonna die. So so you have nothing to lose. That's how I look at it. You really have nothing to lose. And if you really believe that it's in your heart that this dream is possible for you, and this is something you can actually go after, you have to do whatever it takes. Now, I'm not saying, I would never suggest to somebody to quit their job, their full-time job, because you'll end up making horrible decisions, because your decisions will be based on, how can I pay my bills? They won't be based on, is sense. So I tell people, don't quit your job. Start off small. That's why, hence, I always push the niche, creating a niche, or the niche point. And you have to create systems, because what you have when you're working on the side and you're creating your own side business, what you have at your at what your biggest resource is your time, right? Because it's limited. You can't create more time. You can't have 30 hours in a day. So you have to create ways and systems in place that can operate, and that can operate on autopilot. And that's why I always suggest you get interns to do some of the heavy lifting of things that aren't important. Whether it's inputting information, you create the email, have them send out emails as your assistant, or it's an intern, or using email autoresponders rather than having to send emails to a whole bunch of different people. Creating a website is optimized correctly so that people can put in their information and receive the information that they're looking for based on what you've set up. I'm trying to think what else. You're gonna have to stay up late. I mean, there are a lot of people I meet who are like, being an entrepreneur. I, I slept 3 hours last night. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's cool, but I believe in this a lot more than I believe in my sleep right now, because I have to work as hard as I possibly can until I get everything to where it is, where I can sleep 15 hours a day.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Ebong. I really appreciate your time today. I want to thank all the attendees, and for the great questions that they asked, and to just encourage everybody to go back and visit Savvy Ladies, for our Wednesday webinar series. Ebong will be tweeting out all afternoon, so thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.